But science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Where you been?
Drunk.
Wendy, darling, light of my life.
What is your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck off and die.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I feel like we'll have. I don't know, man. This is weird. I think the fact that this film is based off of a novel and it's based off of a movie from the 50s, that the story is tough. I really wish that, like, he just started off with them in the province where they are in South America.
Really? All right, interesting.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get, because I couldn't disagree more.
Okay. All right. I'm curious to see. Let's get there.
Normally I would, though. I think normally I would agree. So this is the Coldest Cinema Knowledge podcast, right? That's Jordan Levi here. Today we're talking about William Friedkin's 1977 movie Sorcerer.
The Sword and the Stone.
And Jordan killed William Friedkin not that long ago when we did fucking French Connection.
Yeah, the French Connection. Well, that's the thing. We did the French Connection, and we did one other Friedkin, right?
I think we did Exorcist for Horrortober a few years back.
Okay, well, yeah, you're right, 100%. So we watched Exorcist and then French Connection. Sweet. And then we were talking about doing like To Live and Die in New York or in LA.
I really want to watch Killer Joe for the pod because I love that movie. But
That's
also,
right.
I've been wanting to rewatch Bug too, and so if we don't watch,
dude, freaking takes on such good projects. I'm so sad.
He's all over the place too, which is cool because
Yes,
it's like he's pretty varied, man.
Dude, don't get me wrong. I think that's the thing. I'm gonna come off right off the top. And I'm going to say that this is some of the most solid filmmaking ever. And I love this film so much. But it's just that front half, that 30 minutes, is so sloppy and so unfortunate. But I actually don't completely hate it either for what it was doing. It's just so rooted in its like the 70s vagueness of how they it's just so vague, and they get the story going, and then like I kind of like an hour into the movie I was like, oh, my brain was lagging, and I'm like, I get it now. I kind of get these characters, and then I'm like, oh, this is like technically the inciting incident is when they need to start moving the glycerin. So I'm just
like an hour in,
what?
yeah.
Yeah, an hour in. So
and that is very 70s. I did say on my Reddit comment that I was like, nowadays, they would totally start it. They would get rid of all the shit at the beginning. They would start it in the village of the South American place, and they would just fill in the blanks of their backstories with expository dialogue.
That's literally what I said in my review.
Did you? 100%.
Yes,
that's what they would do. And if done right, I'm totally fine with that. Like, that's a good way to do character and everything. And normally I wouldn't like this because it does feel like a series of vignettes at the beginning. You're like, how does this all come together?
That was meant to be. That's what like Friedkin wanted. Like it's crazy. Friedkin actually said this was one of the closest movies. This is the closest movie to perfection that he's ever made. It's the closest thing to what he pictured and what he got on film. And so I'm like, that's really cool. But how come when I hear that from directors, there's a lot of directors that say that, and then that movie, I'm like,
it's like,
were you just high?
Yeah.
It's like you've done better movies.
He definitely was fucking hitting the opium pipe or something during this movie.
Yeah, dude.
This movie, before we get too into it, we'll do a synopsis here in a sec. But I was thinking like Friedkin is like the American Herzog for me, and especially this movie.
100%.
I was definitely, because the way he does everything, just so like he does documentary films, and then he shoots things like documentary style, and I guarantee you like 5 people died during the production. And it's like in South America, right. I was thinking of like Aguirre the whole time I was watching this. Yes. Right?
Well, and he makes them work in such like brutal, realistic conditions where it's like no matter how good or bad an actor is, just them getting through the scene, it feels so real. Like
Yeah.
the fact that like them just getting through, you're like you can see them. Like it's one of those things where it's like I was thinking about. Let me just get this out of the way real quick. The bridge scene, the infamous bridge scene. That would have
Rightly
been shot
so.
on green screen. That would have been shot on green screen nowadays, dude.
Yeah,
Like, and do you know how disgusting that would have been? Like, I was so like watching this, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. This is a true film. And
I know. I was like,
love it.
I bet you. I know. Watching that scene, we'll get to that scene. That scene deserves a whole segment of its own. But
Really, really,
watching it, I was like, I bet this set was fucking miserable.
I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you all about it. I've got the run. I got the
Okay,
rundown
good. I didn't
stuff.
really look
I can
into
tell you when we
it.
get there.
I didn't really look
Yeah.
into it because I was just like,
It's
I'm like,
beautiful.
not only is it just like the most insane, like they actually, I guarantee you, they just pretty much did that. You know what I mean? But just
Yeah.
drove it
And
across this bridge, and it's like maybe
yeah, let's get
slightly
there.
modern amenities.
But
but
tell
they're,
everybody
like
what
dumping
they're
pouring rain on top of it. It's just like,
Well, dude,
get
and how they
fucked.
got that rain is so cool. I'll tell
right,
you.
all
Let's talk about it for a
Let's
second.
calm down. So, for those of you at home that have not seen the movie, or it's been a while, I mean, the movie came out almost 50 years ago at this point. Sorcerer, it starts off like we were talking. There's like 4 vignettes essentially, but it's just like these guys' backstory. Like, first one starts, a guy shows up in he's like an assassin. He shows up, kills a guy. Boom. That's pretty much it. It's short. Second one, it's like these dudes in Israel. They're like this fucking resistance group, and they blow up a fucking like synagogue or something. Like they blow up this building. They're like terrorists, and the fucking military comes and shoots a bunch of them, and one guy gets away from the group. And then the other one is in Paris, and it's this guy Victor who's like, he's like a fucking
Like a diplomat.
Something.
Right?
He's like a band, like, but he's also like, it has to do with like money and investments and shit. So
is it
he's being basically, they're like, hey, you're gonna go to jail for fucking fraud because he's like embezzling or something. It's kind of vague, but unless you can pull this collateral together.
Vague is how
Yeah.
vague is how every single backstory is.
And so like his partner and his brother-in-law, he's like, no, we got to do it together, and then he kills himself, and so he's like, fuck, and so he just takes off, you know, because he's like gonna go to prison and shit. And then fuck, what's that? Oh yeah, the last guy, Roy Schreider's character. He's like a fucking gangster in New Jersey that they rip off this church.
He's more of like a petty.
Yeah,
crook
he's
that rips
like
off a gangster.
Yeah, he's like this Italian crew that ends up ripping off like a heavy mobster, and like shoots a priest, and he gets in he's a driver, like a getaway driver, but he crashes the car because there's like a heated argument, and all his teammates, so good, and all his like partners pretty much die, and he gets away and he's all fucked up, and one of his criminal buddies is like, all right, here's your path, get on the plane, here you're going, I don't know where you're going, but you're on the run, right? So flash forward to an indeterminate time later. There's this village in like fucking Argentina or somewhere like that. It's just indeterminate South American village, but I say Argentina because there's definitely Nazi war criminals living there, and like,
and it's
Argentina was a fucking hot spot for that. But we're in this village. It's like this village outside of this American oil company, so it's like a lot of the economic shit comes from this oil company. Like a lot of people work for it, laying the pipelines and all that shit. We kind of slowly find out that our dudes, all like 3 of them at least, are all living in this village and working, and it's like really fucking poor, and the matters are poor as fuck, but they're all kind of on the run, and they all kind of just came together in this village. And then like the hitman guy shows up, and he's the most mysterious one. I don't remember his name, but like he shows up, and everyone's keeping an eye on him, and they all kind of think that he's there for them because they're all on the run. You know what I mean? They're all like super shady of him, and but he dresses all nice and everything. So,
and he does. So like he shows up, and then the U.S. is there drilling for oil.
Right.
And so he sees that there's a dude who gets hired by the U.S. crew to move that nitroglycerin. So he kills that guy, and this was the most this was like the most egregious part of the whole movie for me. He kills him, and they go, "That bastard killed one of the drivers," and then they go, "Well, we're down a driver, so let's hire him."
Yeah, you're it. And they're like, all right.
This is the most awkward. I was like,
It was awkward
"Whoa,
that
this
he
is weird."
accepted it, because if it's like,
Yeah,
he's
that-
like a
yeah,
hitman,
his-
then he like, I don't know.
He was
It-
like
it
kind
was
of the,
vague.
he was like my favorite character by the end, but he was one of the worst characters to get going.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I
didn't-
agree
didn't-
with
I
that.
don't
Like,
know why.
well, he
like,
had the
why he was running and why he accepted the job.
he had
was
the
so
vaguest, like,
weird.
the part I liked having like who these men are and they're on the run. Like, I liked that.
Yeah.
And that's why I liked the beginning. I think it's
And I love
worked,
that it
but
just gets to the
his
point,
his
really, though.
is like, who is this guy still? Like, I have like his section made kind of other than he's a hitman, which lended nothing to the fact that he's like, yeah, I guess I'll be one
know.
pays as good as the other. So anyway, the reason why they are hired to get this nitroglycerin is there's the U.S. presence there is not exactly loved, and so there's an attack on the oil derricks, and it blows up, and it's a very much there will be blood, just fucking fire spewing in the air, and the guy's like, I have a whole ocean of oil under my feet, and nobody can get at it but me, but they're like, okay, we got to blow it close like they do in There Will Be Blood, right?
Right.
And so they go to this old shack not in the middle of nowhere, and it's just full of boxes of wet, dilapidated.
It's like 45 miles away from the.
It's 200 miles away.
Is it 200 miles?
It's
I couldn't remember if they
218
explained it.
miles. Yeah, and I'm just
Oh,
like,
that's
goddamn.
what that, or no, kilometers. I think
Kilometers, yeah,
218
kilometers,
kilometers.
yeah.
Well, whatever that means. I don't know.
But and so they're like,
But yeah.
okay, we need someone to transport it very carefully. So they like hold auditions in the town, and they're like, whoever wants to take this job, it pays really
that's
well,
right.
but it's really dangerous. And so these four guys are like, this is our ticket out. Like it's good money, and it's like we're risk takers, right? So they take the job, and then one of the guys is
I think
an
that's amazing
ex-Nazi officer, and he gets murdered.
I know. Yeah. But I think what's great is like they're not necessarily that excited to do the job as much as they literally know how to drive the truck, and thus they are already employed by this company, by the Americans. So they basically begrudgingly have to take it. But since it's a good a good pot, they're like, well, sure, I guess we'll do it, even though it's like kind of a suicide mission. But then it's like that drive for greed is amazing, and it's actually really well put in this movie. So.
Yeah, they don't love it,
that.
but it's like, yeah, it is. It's for a company they already work for, and they kind of like test everyone to be like, and they're the best drivers, and it makes sense for Jackie's character, right, Paul Schrader.
Yeah, he's like, I used to drive for Greyhound, is what he said.
And he's the
really
getaway
good.
driver and everything for, he
yeah.
fucking crashed his shit. But
Right.
so they take the job. It's 2 trucks with like 12 cases of nitro or whatever, and so it's just them driving, 2 guys per truck, driving through this treacherous jungle to try and make it to this place. And they fucking go down the steep hill. They're trying to find the right way to go, and like they're getting messed with. And then they cross this crazy bridge, and they barely make it across this fucking rickety ass bridge with terrible weather. They eventually come to a giant fallen tree in the road, and they're like, fuck, what do we do? We can't go around the swamp, blah, blah, blah. And they finally decide, like, oh, let's blow it up. We have the nitro. So they come up with like a pretty cool.
That was my first. The second I saw it, I went, you can just blow it up.
Blow it up.
But then it was like, yeah, it was great how they got there.
And it came with this like Rube Goldberg system to like fucking drop a rock in a puddle of nitroglycerin and blow it up, and it is pretty cool. And so they blow it up, and they get through, and they're going along, and fucking Victor the Italian, and then the one Iranian or Israeli guy, they're going along talking, and they think they're like, oh, okay, we did it, and they're like getting to know each other a little bit, and just their tire blows out. They skid off the road, and they fucking blow up, man. It's so just like after all the tension, it really does just swoop in and just like, yeah, you thought you were safe, bitch.
No, it really did make me like kind of gasp. I was like, oh.
Well, there's so many scenes of
knew,
prolonged tension, but it's just so sudden that it's
amazing,
like, and it's over. They're dead.
Is I knew at least, based on my like film history, that the second that he went, so what'd you get into this job for?
Yeah.
I did it for my wife. She
I
gave me
know.
this watch.
He pulls out the watch. He's like,
my daughter Shannon.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Dude, it's 100% just like when the second it was like, and it was so perfect because I'm like, fuck, this isn't cliche anymore because this is it. This is where it like started. This is like where
The
all
era,
these like,
yeah.
stupid tropes came from. Is like it's like that's the era where he's just like, my wife, she gave me this watch.
Yeah.
Boom!
My girl back at home. It's my last day on the force. You know?
Yeah, basically. And it's like they've never talked about themselves or their backstories to each other. So the second he started talking about like why are you doing this, I was like, I'm like he's gonna die.
We'll get to it, but that for me is a perfect encapsulation of like why like the argument for the first part of the movie to show their backstories, even though it's not like super intricate to their lives, but it gives you just enough because this is the one scene where there would be that dialogue of like, oh, here's the character development bit. And it's literally, they're like up 2 sentences in and then they get fucking blown up. Fuck your character building expository dialogue. Like we, the audience already kind of know, but you guys don't get to know each other. Fuck you. You know what I mean? They blow up.
Yeah.
So then the other truck, the assassin and Jackie, the fucking the gangster, they're like, oh no. And they stop when they get caught up to him. They stop and they see all the rubble and all that in the road. And they get ambushed by like a group of militants in the jungle. And they have like a standoff, but basically the fucking hitman pulls a 1-2 and he shoots like 3 of them. And then fucking Jackie kills a dude with a shovel and it's pretty cool. But the hitman's shot, he's bleeding out. And so Jackie's driving the rest of the way and it's like nighttime and he's like losing his fucking mind and having all these weird, it got really surreal and hallucinatory. And his buddy died. And so he just like dragged him out of the car. But eventually he like runs out of gas or whatever. And he's only 2 miles from his location. And so he just fucking grabs a crate and staggers the rest of the way. And so he's like walking delusional and exhausted up to the fucking mound of fire spewing out of the ground, holding like he's stumbling, like you're just waiting for him to trip.
That's one of the most beautiful shots in the whole movie too.
So
like,
good.
he's carrying it, everyone rushes to him, and then
they're like, "Oh shit!"
The banner.
Yeah.
You see the banner of their company like behind the fire.
He just like collapses, and they all like carefully take the box, you know, and he's just like collapses. And then it shows like sometime later, he's getting his money. He's got a suit. Everyone's like, "Oh, the company pays him. He's good to his word. He's about to leave the country and start his life anew somewhere else with like, you know, he's got all the other guys to share. So he's got 4 times the money he would have had. And then right at the end, the fucking gangsters that were hunting him down show up at this fucking bar in the middle of South America and they just like all shady. And then they just go into the restaurant and it ends.
Well, it ends. It's got a very important ending and kind of a frustrating ending in my opinion, but it's got the gun. It's got the like nondescript gunshot.
Yeah.
If you can't really tell if it's a gunshot. Can't tell if it's like, like somebody like a car backfire. You can't. You don't know exactly what.
It's very much
it's isolated, but it's definitely supposed to leave you like open ended. Like
yeah, exactly. So there it ends, and it's I know I was like, oh no, he almost did it, and then I'm like, who knows? Yeah. Maybe he got out. That's one of the things. It's like I'm kind of glad he didn't because
I know he didn't get out because it's.
I know, but Friedkin,
it wouldn't be poetic justice. Like he got the money, but it's like
Friedkin is sort of cynical, and so I'm glad he didn't go the cynical route, where of like it shows him getting fucking popped in the dome, and then it ends where it's just like 100% definitive. I like that it's just like. Maybe he got shot and he got away. Maybe he's injured.
I know.
Maybe he dies. Maybe he gets it. Right. Maybe he gets he's paranoid and he gets the jump on that. Maybe I don't know. And so it's like, I like that it's vague enough because I care about the character enough.
Well,
and I want him, he's been through a lot. I want to see him do okay now.
Yeah. And I feel like he could survive because they're going into a bar where shady characters exist in this bar. So it's like
you just walk in and start shooting. It's like you're probably gonna get got. Hopefully,
right, exactly. And I think that's like an important scene for just like the characterization of that town that they're in, of that weird the poverty and everything that goes on in that village. It's like these bad guys show up, and they're bad guys. They're coming into this place where it's like. Well, this town is like worse than you. Like it's like there's no law and order in this town. You know, it's dictatorship. So it's like, I don't know. I like that it just shows a bad guy and you're going into like a worse place. And so he might not have lived.
I don't
He
know.
might have. Yeah,
Yeah, he probably died.
who
But
knows?
so now we ambled through that. What were your first impressions? Because you've never seen this, right?
No, I actually
I
like.
thought-
This is I mean, have you? Did you even really know about this movie?
Yeah, I was the one that put it on there. It's been on my watch list forever, just because, only because it's Friedkin, and I've
right.
always wanted to see it. I read the synopsis years ago, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's a remake, and I'm like tangentially aware of Wages of Fear, which is like the original one and the book, right? And so I was like, oh, okay, cool, like. I definitely want to see this, and so I was like, "Oh, okay, this is a driving." I didn't think it would win, but it did.
This is 100%. The fact that this one is wild because it was up against some like heavy contenders that it's just every time a random movie like this wins, I'm always so surprised. I love it.
I know, right?
But I love this because it's got the Thing treatment. It's an old classic 50s that's got like the 50s one looks awesome. But it looks very rigid and stale, kind of like the original Thing, where it's like there's some cool action scenes and some great monologuing, but it's just like old Hollywood, just shot like, and it's a foreign film, but still, it's shot on just twos, and then people just talking, and it's like the truck action is like like really slow, and it's like, and the bridge, like one board breaks on the bridge, and they're like high tension, and you're like yeah, and then you see this movie, and you're like, oh, holy shit! He almost killed like 8 people on just to shoot that bridge scene. So it's the movie's like is so much more violent.
So I said this a little bit when we watched French Connection, but I fucking love, and it's this era, but it is also Friedkin specifically too. The way he shoots this movie is so it's crunchy, man. I don't know what it is, but it's because it's like he's got big sweeping wide shots. He's got zooms, but like he knows when to fucking get in there handheld 16 millimeter fucking documentary in the gritty, can barely focus on the shit. But so the cinematography was dope in my opinion, and especially in that old school way. But the thing that really makes this movie work, the thing that really brings it together, and I'm really glad I added this to the survey because I just added it to have an even number for my fucking shit because nobody ever really pays that much attention, is the editing. But the editing is so good in this movie, man. Like I absolutely was obsessed with the editing.
And that's what saved this movie 100%.
That makes sense. It's what saves a lot of movies, right?
Yeah. I straight up like, and that's what's so cool is like, this is Friedkin was the one that we say this all the time, and I actually didn't know he's kind of like accredited for the concept of a film gets made 3 times where it's written, shot, and edited, and like that really like stands true in this movie because I know for a fact with the research I did that like Friedkin wanted to make this. Well, it's so funny. So this movie was literally a side project that Friedkin wanted to make for $1 million. Because he was like, oh, I'm going to just remake Wages of Fear, and I'm going to make it very similar to Wages of Fear. And he's like, I would shoot it on studios, and I would shoot it like in America, and just nothing, make it a Hollywood film. Just kind of do this as like an homage. And then he started like, flushing it out and building the script, and like he got the idea, and it like just stuck in him. And he really wanted to make this like an epic, and he wanted to make this like the largest movie he's ever made and the biggest movie he's ever made, which I think that honestly it is to date. It's got to be one of the biggest. Like, it
probably is like I think
when it comes to like just
scope,
pure like
just overall scope. I think
of production.
Yeah, that we've seen anyway. I mean,
right.
French Connection seems like it's got a pretty big scope, just because it's like the gangster shit and like cast in the city, but like. No, this does feel like an epic because it's like a journey.
This is like, and this is one of those where it's like there's a lot of set pieces. Like I think I just want to get it out of the way, or I want to talk about the bridge scene real quick because that is what I mean by scope. Like I know we're not there yet, but I wanted to say
we can talk about the bridge scene because it's like that's on all the posters. It's
right,
like the image when you think about this movie, and it will be ingrained in my head. the fucking image of the guy like sitting on the boards, like trying to direct him.
Yeah.
And the fucking and the thing is just like on this rickety bridge about to tip, like it's a second from tipping in the water. I'm like, that lives in my brain, and it's going to live in my brain forever.
Yeah, and that is true pure filmmaking.
Yeah, dude.
because the river below was only like 6 inches deep.
Dude, yeah, the weight. Really?
Yeah, it was only 6 inches deep. And okay, anyway, so just to start off, the bridge construction, they first built it over a different river, and it was just like somewhere else, and they built it, and then the river dried up completely. It was one of the most devastating droughts that's like in history of this town.
Of course.
So they're like, oh shit, and so they moved it, and it cost $1 million to build it, set it up, get it ready, and so they had to deconstruct it, move it, reconstruct it again, cost another $1 million just to get it built and put up. And what's cool about it is it's literally it's just an amusement park ride. It's actually like super safe because it's all built on hydraulics.
Oh, really? That's insane.
Yeah, dude, isn't it crazy? It literally looks like a fucking found rickety bridge.
It looks perfect.
That
yeah.
It was like that's where Herzog's a little different. Friedkin, he cares about the people he's with just a tiny bit more.
I was like,
Herzog would have just found a bridge and made those fuckers drive up.
He would have like made the indigenous people build a bridge over an actual raging river.
I know. Well, we can get into that a little bit. The indigenous folk there, all the locals, when they built the new bridge, the river started to dry up again. So that took them only 6 inches. Originally, it was like a couple feet. And so when they built it, there was a drought that came through again, and they got really mad. A lot of the locals and a lot of local government was like, hey, everybody's like really mad, and they want to blow the bridge up. They want you to dismantle it, or they're going to blow it up. And so they had to pay him off and tell them that like, we're going to be out of here really quick. And he lied. Freaking on this one. I mean, finding out that like Freakin is pretty intense when it comes to his filmmaking. Like,
I
don't know if we really talked about it on French Connection, but on this one, this was like one of his most like.
Well,
it is like most outbursts.
He got the bunch of real heroin in French Connection,
right.
So
I know.
Makes sense.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, totally. But he definitely is like he's got a little attitude issue. But he builds it, he gets it going, and driving across it, it took them 30 days to shoot this scene, and it cost him like well over $2 million.
That's incredible. I never
just to put the bridge up. But the bridge, and do you know how they did all the water? So
it was so realistic looking, man. I never.
If they had a rain machine, I'm like, cool. They must have had a rain machine for some of the close-ups. But the wider shots, I'm like, there's no fucking way. That shit is like there's no rain machine that exists.
I'm like, are they under a waterfall, man? It is huge.
Oh, dude, they really are. They have fire trucks there parked with fire hoses shooting water out, and then they have other water cannons blowing more water up, and helicopters. What? So they flew a bunch of helicopters over the top to make it to like, demonstrate or to like whatever simulate that storm.
Yeah,
it's bonkers, dude. It was such a huge production. Like it's estimated it was guaranteed $1 million to build and relocate it. It's $2 million, so essentially $1 million each time. And then for those 30 days, it was going to be like another $1 million just for the shooting of that scene.
That's crazy.
It's like originally because of that scene, he had to get funding from 2 other studios because originally he only got $5 million to make this movie, and he was already blowing his budget out of the water just with that.
Well, I guarantee you then, you say this is like the closest to his vision. I imagine that scene turned out exactly how I wanted it to, because I never would have guessed that. It looks
not
so
in a million
real.
years would I have expected that to be fake.
No,
yeah, dude.
I thought for sure, I was like, okay, the bridge is probably more secure. There's like cables running underneath, so it doesn't actually snap. But dude, I'm like, that's a stunt driver, and it's like, hopefully it doesn't tip.
Dude, and it wasn't stunt drivers too. They wanted to be in it, so they're in it driving, and a lot of the principal actors crashed. So the car crashed 5 times. The truck fell off the bridge 5 different times, but it fell slowly because it's on a hydraulic, and it just would slide slowly, and it only hit in like 6. It was like 6 to 8 inches of water.
That's fucking
so it's
crazy.
Like, so it's just like, it's like it wasn't like as dangerous.
It looks like the most
70s,
raging river. And the ricketiest bridge, like, that is such an insane sequence that I was literally looking at it being like, how did they film this? This looks brutal. And I was literally like, oh yeah, they like there's a little bit of stuff going on, but I'm like, no, this is crazy. This is why I was thinking like this is some Herzog shit. But no, you're like, no, this is 30 days and like $3 million worth of effort. And they did such a great job then. That's amazing. Because that scene is so good.
I mean, not to say it wasn't like it's as simulated as possible, but there's still so much risk involved. I mean, he's still driving the truck, and it still can crash. And like,
well, that's good because
the water conditions, everything are like crazy.
The close-ups on their faces when it cuts to, because it's like every shot in that sequence, because they do it not once but twice. You know, they go in both trucks cross.
Yeah, and I loved it both times they did it. I was
both times.
Yeah.
Well, because it's like I'm like, how are they gonna raise the stakes again? And then the dude he falls in.
Yeah, and
the other guy almost
rush,
runs him
he
over.
falls in and he rushes underwater and it's silent. You can't hear the truck anymore. You can't hear the rain.
That's part of the editing, dude. The editing is so good.
Editing, dude. It made that part made me gasp.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, whoa. Like I got scared for him, dude.
I know.
Was like, oh,
and then now I know it's only like 8 inches. Like,
I know, right? He probably fell into like a fake pool. It's probably shot
right?
Probably shot in America. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But
yeah, I'm so impressed. And you know what's so funny? In the movie, they show the scene where they're crossing. It's like dry and it's like during the day, and he's crossing that one bridge, and it's all scary, and a couple of the boards fall off, you know, and he's trying to get around that bend.
Yeah,
that
first one.
The very first time the truck has to like go against an obstacle.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's like, I was kind of like, it's like, oh, wow, okay, that was a little scary, but whatever. It's kind of short and kind of, it just built. I was like, it's building up, and I'm sure there's going to be more, peril involved. But then it almost like immediately after that, like I swear to God, there's only like a scene between.
Yeah.
And then it shows they pull up to the scene where they don't know which way to go, and then they go the wrong way, and then they get to that bridge, and I was like, oh my God, they're just gonna do this again. And then I was like, oh my God, this is like a 7-minute scene of them on the bridge freaking out. And then I love how like it works so well because they're basically in a rainforest, and so you like the like torrential storm that is happening, and then it's just like they're down the street and it's just sunny. It's like all within like, this movie kind of that whole sequence takes place over like a day basically. They go in the morning to night, but it's like throughout the day they experience like so much weather, and it feels like such an epic journey. And like it really is a testament to like that editing and the filmmaking of this.
Yeah.
I
would say the one thing, like I do wish, like I like the beginning, but I do wish that some of the stuff at the village, like all the extra stuff of them, like trying to train people, like was a little. I feel like they could have got to the trucks a little sooner, because like you're right. By the time they get to the trucks,
right?
But it's like from the moment they start transporting the nitroglycerin on the ropes, like that's when you're like, okay, the movie has started. Like, you know what I mean?
Right, really though. Really. Yeah.
Like
that's what I mean. It's like that's what I say, inciting incident. Like it literally is until like the first time the dude dips his fingers in the nitroglycerin, and and that
he carries it all
drips
out,
off, and he's like, he carries it so softly and it pops. And it's like that is the inciting incident. Yeah. That right there is when they're like, all right, now the movie is
we have a problem. What's the solution? You know what I mean? How are we gonna fucking overcome the obstacle? But
that's such a good scene, dude. When he's got like the glycerin on his fingers.
So cool.
What is nitroglycerin? Is it natural?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Does it appear in like caves or something? What?
Oh no, it's just TNT sweat, basically. It's like, right? Because it's like.
Then what's TNT then? What I was trying to look this up because I thought nitroglycerin got packed into TNT, and that's what made it. You could pack nitroglycerin into like clay or something or whatever.
Yeah, dynamite's like a reformed style of like a chemical mixed gunpowder. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but like I feel like that's what it is, because it's like when the dude invented dynamite, it was like it's like essentially
gunpowder mix or something.
Yeah, something like that. It's a chemical reaction, but it's like definitely some type of gunpowder. But it's funny because in Utah, where I live, a couple weeks ago,
you were getting yourself into some nitrous.
No, there was a woman in Sandy, I think it was Sandy or Draper, and she had told an old lady, like an 85-year-old lady, she told her friend, like, hey, my late husband, who's been dead for a while now, he collects explosives and I don't know what to do with them. And so they're like, gee, I don't know. And so they called the cops and they're like, hey, we got these explosives And the cops came out to her house, and they're like, "Oh fuck!" And they evacuated the entire neighborhood because apparently she had like hundreds of pounds of nitroglycerin, like old, unstable explosives in her basement, just like
That's amazing.
boxes and boxes of old dynamite that her dead husband had been collecting for God knows how long.
Did the police call 4 ragamuffins to come in, 4 vagrants,
right?
to come in and drive it out of there?
Seriously, right? They're just gonna drive
That's
it out
crazy.
to the fucking West Desert. Just hire a bunch of crackheads from West Valley.
I know, really though. They know how to drive stick.
But I just think it's funny because then I'm just like, oh yeah, the nitroglycerin, man, it's around. It's just weird how it's just like neglected explosives, you know?
Right. Well, the fact that whatever chemical reaction is like weeping out of it, it's such a wild thing to me, and it's like, I mean, it is pretty amazing, man. We've done some crazy feats to kill each other, so
I know. It's like
wild.
the fact it's such a good premise for a movie and obviously a book of how it
dude,
started.
It was a
'cause
ticking time bomb 100% of the
So-
time. The second it gets loaded in the sand,
The most
every time they're
unstable-
jerking in the car,
dude. The first, okay, so it's like going back to like the first time they crossed that bridge is pretty great. That was the first. I really was like paying attention to the editing then because I thought it was an interesting choice. Where the first crew, right, fucking Jackie and the hitman or whatever, they're like they're getting harassed by that like villager, and then it cuts to the next crew coming through, and the road is destroyed, and he's got the note that says "Good luck," because it's like something happened and they like knocked a truck off the side, and so the road was destroyed. It doesn't show any of it.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
And so it's like obviously I'm like, oh, okay, interesting, because now we're coming up on what happened, the aftermath of that scene, and have these guys go around it. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting choice. And then like the editing in that scene was like the first where it's like the tension, because I'm like, okay, it's not going to blow up, right? It's so early in the movie. But they do such a good job of like pacing it out that it's just like, okay, we're really on this edge, really close. And then like when the first board breaks and it cuts to the inside of the back and all the boxes are like, they like shift forward like 6 inches. I'm just like, ugh.
It's such a good reminder that like the boxes are in there. Like it kind of like, you know, I know you kind of forgot a little bit and here they are. And like, it just made me like, it made me like, ooh,
It's great.
Geez, the
Well,
boxes are.
and it makes it, that shot is such a like a little just like, oh, like this whole movie is just so many edge of your seat kind of shit like that. That later at the end, the same group, the same guys, because you only see that shot a couple times of the boxes in the sand, you know. But when you know something bad's gonna happen because they're he's like, my wife gave me this watch, but like fast forward to the end, and it's showing the tire, and then the tire blows out, and they're like, and they skid, and then it shows the shot, and the boxes just come up, just right, and they just fly to the front of the cab, and you're just like, no, and then they just explode, man.
Because for a second I thought, oh, they're gonna have them like. I was like, I didn't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, they're gonna die, but I didn't know if it was like gonna be that or
it's gonna be
like,
another.
Down.
It's gonna be another
like,
intense moment where they're like down the ridge and they're like gotta be.
I thought they were gonna
crazy.
do that and then kind of laugh it off, and then it would explode, you know, and kill them like that.
They
But
immediately
I loved it.
fucking into a fucking ravine and explodes.
Just
dude.
the second they go down. Well, dude, and what's great is I actually, I think that the vignettes work really well because freaking. Wanted to. He was originally the original script, original story. It was just gonna show Scheider or whatever. You know, it's just gonna show his name Jim, whatever the main character.
Yeah, Jackie or whatever. Roy Scheider.
Jackie,
fucking,
yeah. Roy Scheider's character. He was gonna be the only
Sheriff Brody
vignette
from
at
Jaws.
the beginning.
Yeah,
right, Jaws. That's when I saw him the whole through the whole movie. I was like, God, why does he look so familiar? And I was like, oh yeah, Jaws. He was going to be the only vignette, and it was going to be a little bit longer, and it was going to show him in New Jersey, show him hitting the church and kind of talking about that and the inner workings of that. And then it was going to cut to him in South America, and he was going to talk to everybody, introduce himself, get to know everybody, and then they were going to move the trucks. But he knew that the second that happened, you knew Roy Scheider was going to live. Like, that's just kind of how it would be, you know? You're kind of like, oh, okay. Like, of course he's going to live because, like, he's our main character. So he opted to do the 4 vignettes. So you kind of don't know when everyone comes together, and I think it works perfect.
Yeah,
I think
really
that
don't.
actually does help a lot with like not knowing who's gonna live.
He doesn't
you know,
have,
like
because obviously in retrospect, he's obviously the protagonist, because especially after the other everyone else dies, he has so many of his own personal moments, and he's like his
and
own
he gets
psychosis
and, he gets the most
and his
talking
demons.
and, yeah.
Oh, for sure. And he's the biggest star, right? He
Sure,
just
sure,
came off Jaws a few years previous, but it's like, but yeah, the other guy Vincent, it's like those two. The two white guys, right? They are like the ones that it's like I could have went either way, you know what I mean? Because it's like honestly, we have more empathy probably for Vincent's character because he's like white collar crime, like he's like a fucking, he's like a
he wasn't as violent,
embezzler.
for
He's
sure.
not a violent man. He had a wife that loved him, you know what I mean? And it's like he's kind of a coward, but it's like him coming up to like overcoming those obstacles to redeem himself. Like it does feel like by the end of it, he's like, you know what? Like when he's showing off his watch again, because at the beginning he was ready to just sell it so he could get out of the country. But by the time at the end, he's like, you know what? It's about the friends we made along the way, and we really, we really, you know, I think I'm ready to go back now, and I really do miss my wife, and I love her, but you know, too bad.
Yeah, right. Like it's like, and that brings me to my other little factoid. They are in the truck called the Sorcerer. Thus the title of the film.
Right, I saw one of the trucks was Sorcerer. The one that blew up was the Sorcerer?
The one that blew up is Sorcerer.
Okay.
And that is because it's like the hand of fate is like a wizard or some shit. I don't freaking
I did
you know,
I did
like,
see
dude,
something about freaking. I
railing,
saw like a
he's
snap.
railing some blow and he's like dude, he's like the universe is a wizard, dude. Like that's his whole premise behind it. And I am a sucker for that kind of shit. So I love how he's like, it's mystic, man. He's like, Sorcerer, dude, it's the truck they're in, man.
Because I had to look that
awesome.
up because that was one thing I was wondering. I didn't look up much. I don't look up much, but I was like, why is this movie called Sorcerer? And then I saw the truck was called Sorcerer. I saw it in the movie and I was like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. But still, why Sorcerer, right? Because like Wages of Fear is such a better title.
Oh, it's such a sick title. Dude, Wages of Fear is a really good
It's
title.
a great title. And so I'm like, Sorcerer, and it's literally has nothing to do with any type of mysticism or anything. It's literally just dudes in the jungle.
I was telling my coworkers about this movie, and Parker was like, is it about like a wizard or something? Is there like knights in it? Is it magical?
Not at all.
It's like, no, it's like the farthest thing from
it.
Really, what I feel like it is like it almost felt like they were like in a ship, or like there was some, I don't know, it felt, God, I'm trying to think. God, there was something the other day, kind of like Master and Commander or something, where like they're both pilots of their ship, and like they're both like really good at navigating it. And I don't know, it felt like they were going through like uncharted waters, and it's kind of what it is, you know. That's kind of it's kind of the vibe. It doesn't have that premise necessarily. And I'm trying to think, like, that doesn't really. This kind of movie is somewhat unique. Like I don't know, there's tons of movies that are like ticking time bombs, you know, and they have to travel a payload. But it's like I don't know. I thought this was a unique setting for it.
Yeah, I really liked the
really
jungle. Like it had a atmosphere about it, and it's like, let's take a moment to talk about what really I think added to it was the score, which was incredible.
Dude, okay,
having
do you want to know
crazy jungle with like this synth score.
Band. So the band is called Tangerine Dream.
Right. Yes.
Yes. Did you know they literally? This is like the only time I've ever heard of this in my entire life. They wrote and composed the entire movie without watching a single frame of film. They made this based on Freakin's description and the script. They read the script.
Cool.
Freakin said, "Hey, this is the thought. This is the idea." And I like the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, God, this music fucking rocks. Like
I wish there was more.
It's really
of it, man.
good. That's the thing. Yeah, it's kind of subtle, and it's not like this isn't one you could throw like the original soundtrack on and enjoy it.
I do.
But when
I actually, that was the other thing I forgot to mention. I had listened to the soundtrack before I'd watched the movie, just because I was looking for soundtracks. Like I was like best soundtracks when I was writing, like last year my book.
Oh yeah.
And so I found this soundtrack. And that was another reason that made me want to watch it, is because I was listening to this score and I'm like, the score is dope.
Oh, sick.
And then but like, because I'd come at it, I did know the score first, and it made me want to watch the movie more. And then when the score was in it, I was like, oh, this is so good. But then every time it would come on for like a couple stings, and then it would fade out. And I'm like, no, I want it. I want the whole thing just soaked in it.
Oh, so when you listen to the score, like wherever you were listening to it, it played like it composed like a whole piece.
Yeah, each song is like 4 minutes.
Oh, okay, that's sick. Because in this movie, it's used very sparingly.
Yeah, it's very sparingly for only like a few seconds at a time. Like there is some sequences, but like all the sequences. And honestly, I think they're more effective for it. But like the tension scenes, like the fucking bridge and everything, it's like it's just the rain and the engine and the men screaming. Do
you know what the engine is? So the engine, I can't remember oh my God, I just had the stupid. I didn't write it down and then I left the page. But the trucks they each have a name. The Sorcerer, and then the other one, it translates like to the hand of God or to the fate of God, and it's something Coleco or something. Anyways, the other truck name that they drive, that has like a lion roar underneath it. So the whole time it'll have a lion, like as they mix the sound, it's truck engines and then a lion roar, and then the Sorcerer is a panther roar underneath.
So funny.
Underneath it. It's just like it kind of adds to like that feeling, like.
Because it's like this movie does feel really grounded and everything, but then like there's that climactic near the end sequence of like when he's doing that last drive himself, and it's just obviously it's just so blue, and all the fucking voices and like the superimposed visuals and the music and everything, like that does. I'm like, oh, this got weirdly surreal, but that's when it's like I felt like the music. The score, the name Sorcerer, the fucking like everything was kind of came together in that moment to like really peaked on the vibe of it, because the whole time it's like it has this unearthly feeling, but it's very grounded. It's like these dudes, these just fucking criminal dudes that like you normally are like scum of the earth. They're all on the run that you end up kind of rooting for. That it's just like going about their days, and then it's like he has this final breakdown, and it's like, of course, it's freaking just being like, yeah, you know,
I know, it's like he's like, this is jazz, baby.
Sorcerer,
we're getting weird, you know, like
it's the hand of fate.
Really, like, well, and I think it's indicative of the time where in the 70s they were just freaking throwing whatever they wanted, like they you know, it was kind of just like unconventional filmmaking, and that was the time period we were in, and it was like I think that like this is what 76, 77.
Yeah.
And so this is right when you were safe to do weird things like this. Like I was surprised that it actually didn't have weirder stuff, you know, mixed throughout the whole movie. I think it's appropriate, and I like that juxtaposition of him just kind of losing his mind at the end, and the visual representation. That was also Friedkin's other plan for this movie, is he wanted to make that so from the second that they start taking the nitroglycerin into the trucks, they load it up. He wanted it to be 100% silent. He just wanted it all, or you know, whatever, like no dialogue. He wanted it all to be
and mostly
zero dialogue.
Like there's
really
very
he
little.
Stuck to that pretty. Yeah, I think that was probably just his first script where he was like, "Dude, no dialogue, man, for the entire movie." For
I
the
get
rest
it.
Of
I
it.
totally get
it.
it.
You know, like that was.
Dude,
and he does
Sorcerer.
it well.
That's the Sorcerer. Like,
fate, the sorcerers are words, man.
Yeah,
but yeah, like. You know, dude, like he accomplished it. I feel like I think the amount of dialogue that happens, it's very appropriate, and
it's literally short.
It's very effective.
There's not like character. It's not like a bunch of like plot stuff. It's literally like, I can't see you. Stop. Like it's just literally shit that. Like where
that
it's
isn't
just
even like honestly, that's not even really dialogue. That felt real. That felt like him pleading for his life.
Oh, dude, the fucking looks on their face. Like, that's why I know they were in the truck, because the looks on their face when they're driving, and the fucking one windshield wiper is just going like 100 miles an hour, and they're going across this bridge, and like they look like terrified, and it's like their life depends. They're hyper focused, then their life depends on it, dude. It's so good. Yeah, I really like this movie. I do think it's like it's a little messy, you know. I think it's a little rough around the edges, but I think that kind of adds the charm.
I'm already forgetting about how messy it is, and just in my mind, I'm compressing it into like the hour-long movie that it should be, you know.
I do think it easily could have been an hour 40, where it's over 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like I do
Right,
think they
yeah.
could have cut 20 minutes, mostly from the front end, and I think it would have flowed a lot better. Because even though the editing really helped the pacing, I think the overall, like, it does have a slow first hour. You know what I mean? It's like they could have cut some of the stuff at the village. I think, like it's all there, but
Yeah, right. I mean, like,
But
I
whatever.
kind of like, yeah, I can't even really remember. I mean, when they're in the village and he like wakes up and you're like, okay, like they're, it's poverty and they're working for like a terrible government regime.
Well, they have a funny montage
And-
where they're like testing all the other drivers in town, and the one guy like pops the clutch. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Whoa!" That's fine, but it's like, I don't need it.
Right. It kind of doesn't fit the tone of this a little, but yeah. But
But,
I think like, I feel like the editing really helped. This does stand out as like, if you showed me this movie, I'd be like, this was made in the 70s, like easy. It like sits in its, it sits in its decade, proudly. But I do feel like the editing is a little more sophisticated.
I do
Like
think
where this
like,
movie could have been super slow, they helped move it along in places.
the editing is 100%. The scenes of tension are 100% relying on the editing and the acting. And then it's like the how they're fucking paced out and how they cut together to fill every bump. You know what I mean? But the first time, oh, here comes my dog. The first time, I really was like, because the score and everything, it's like right after when the Israelis like first blow up, that there's like that huge explosion, and then it cuts. Like there's a lot of smash cuts in this that really work.
Yeah.
And for the audio and everything, but then it cuts to like the gunner of the truck. And then the like, like the fucking synth score comes in. And that was the moment I was like, all right, buddy, buckle up. Here we go.
Right. Well, and freaking is, dude, Exorcist has got that all over the place. Cuts to like the huge, like sweeping, like, fucking sun shots in the desert. And then it's just like that music. And you're like, oh, fuck yeah, dude.
He's got to
Like,
have one of the greatest runs, because I was just looking at his filmography, because I'm like, I've seen quite a few Friedkin movies at this point, and the more I watch of him, because even if you go back and listen to, I mean, we talked about this recently because we're doing Driving Month. We talked about French Connection like in one of the last episodes too, when we did Bullet, I think, and then but that movie I liked quite a bit, but was kind of like, I don't know, it wasn't quite what I expected. But it's, again, another one that lives better in my memory. But like the more I watch of his movies, because I even think The Exorcist is a little bit overrated, and hot take, I guess. But
well, I mean, and when we watched it, we both were gushing about it. So
yeah,
it's one of those things.
It's great.
You can think it's overrated and still appreciate it.
But the more movies I watch of his, like they're all sort of flawed. Like they all have like a little bit about them that's like just shy.
The Herzog comparison is apt. Like it kind of feels like that run and gun. Like I feel like he's got a lot of high intensity that he just wants to put to film.
Yeah.
And so like, he always does that. Like I don't feel like he can be that tender. Like the times even in like The Exorcist when he tries to be tender, there's an edge to it, and there's a hurriedness to it.
Right.
But
yeah. His run in the 70s is incredible. It's got to be one of the best 3 director runs, where it's like fucking French Connection, The Exorcist, and then Sorcerer. You know what I mean? Like that's like his 70s movies, and I'm like, God damn, that's a great run. But it's like my first freaking movie was Bug, or no, it was Exorcist probably.
It was Exorcist, sure, right?
But I didn't really
like,
remember
when you were like actually paying attention to directors. Yeah,
because exactly. And then I went back and watched The Exorcist and was like, oh, okay. But it's like Bug and Killer Joe, like that. This dude, it's
I'm
sad.
I'm sad. He was still making great films.
He came out with his like movie was, I think it was released like maybe after his death, but the Kane Mutiny Court Martial, I guess, is like his last movie. It's a legal drama that I had no idea. I have no idea. I want to see it though.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Okay. Well,
but it just came out last year, I guess, after he died.
Oh damn. Okay, yeah, we'll have to go through, and we need to do directors, dude. Do like a week where we pick a director and just watch all their movies. But we didn't even this movie like the bridge scene is a fucking showstopper. It takes the cake. But we didn't even talk about the sick tree scene. Like
it's really cool.
We didn't even get into that, dude. Like I have factoids for that. Like They originally tried to blow it up, and the pyrotechnician, whatever, on site, he couldn't do it. Like, they were trying to blow up the tree, and it looked really pathetic and lame. And so they had to fell into a different tree and bring in a special, like, pyrotechnician who, like, is really good at blowing up buildings. He would, like, blow up buildings for, like, Hollywood and for, like, demonstrations and stuff, and for, like, practice tests and stuff. He's a crazy dude, and he's basically just a pyromaniac. And he literally got there, and within, like, 3 hours, it was this, like, crazy turnaround. He didn't even work a day. He got there, he set up all of his stuff, and they got the shot in one take, and he blew it up, and it looks awesome.
They probably just fired that other guy. Like, they're like, all right, get fucked.
Probably strapped him to the tree, dude.
Yeah. Well, that scene was so cool because it's like,
and that scene builds great tension, dude. This whole movie, every scene in this movie has great tension. It's wild.
It's great because it's like they're fighting with each other a little bit, and it's just like,
yeah,
fucking Roy Scheider has like he's punching the ground. It's some great acting, but then it's just like they're like, oh, let's blow it up. And then when they come up, because I'm like, what are they doing exactly? Like, what's their plan?
Yeah.
And then when you start to see, like, when he does the fucking drop, and then he, like, cuts the dude's pocket out and, like, fills it up, and it's slowly, and it's like, that's the dry dynamite bits that's useless. They fill it up with that, and it slowly drains out as, like, the timer, and just fucking
dude, the timer's genius. Well, I love, dude, when he sharpens the stick to make the hole for the nitroglycerin to leak out, and he's like, you hear, like, a pop, and his eyes widen or whatever, and you're like, oh, dude, every single time I'm just like, oh my God.
This movie does, like, we talked about it, and it's like the perfect plot for a movie because it's like the most unstable explosive, and like there are scenes of dudes just moving incredibly slow that are incredibly tense because that's all it takes is like slow movements, and then like one guy's like, oh, and then it's like it's so easy. It's a blank check for attention. Because, it's like they bring it out and they set it all down and they're like, oh, and then he like pokes the hole in and it just starts leaking out everywhere. And like, you don't know when it's going to drop.
And you don't know who, like, I like the whole time I'm like, they could kill him right here. Like, that's what kept happening is I was like, oh, they're going to kill. Like, I kept being like, when are they going to kill him? They're going to kill him here, right? Like, I knew Freakin' doesn't pull punches. He's happy to kill his character. So like, I was waiting for it to be like, all right, when's he gonna die? Like, you know, like, well, and
that's why it's so satisfying at the end. Like, it's pretty intense because it's like that's why it works so well for me. Is there's so many scenes of like that slow moving tension where it's like, oh, is it gonna happen? Oh, you know what I mean? There's so many scenes like that throughout the whole movie that's why the suddenness of when they actually do blow up is so good. It's just like it totally does catch you off. Like, you know something's gonna happen, but you're like I said earlier, you're expected that it's gonna be like another drawn out thing if they're gonna blow up. But it's just like boom, wham, bam, and then the other guys are like, oh, and then he's like, hey,
and then the carnage, dude. They showed like the body. It's crazy, yeah.
Well, and then it's just like then the militants are just there, and it's like, oh boy, you know, just like can't get any better. And then it's
don't even get a break. Yeah,
don't even get a break, man. It just keeps going. So anyway.
And that's what's great too is this is a movie where anytime you get a break, you're barely catching your breath. Like there's no one, you know, there's always another obstacle, and it's great. And that's what I will remember about this movie forever.
Yeah, because once it gets to like the 45-minute mark, like that's what I say. It's like everything up to that point is building the environment, setting the vibe. Like, I don't think it's too slow necessarily, but it's just like the back half is so good that you want to get to it quicker
honestly,
because it's so
honestly
good.
Like the more we talk about it, the more I kind of like how they just kind of it was effective to have to show all four because you didn't really know, you know, it sucks because we know Roy Scheider and he's going to be the main character, so it's kind of like we know he's a little bit safe, he's got a little bit of plot armor, but I also like freaking he didn't really know who was going to live or die.
Yeah, you never know.
So,
and
you know,
at the end he kind of it's implied he gets it anyway. You know,
he does. Yeah, and I think that's a callback to classic filmmaking of the fact that like he gets all the riches. Like once the check was signed for 40 grand, it's kind of like he like signed his death warrant. Like that's too much money, dude. He's hot, baby.
And it plays into the theme of like Sorcerer having to do with like you can't escape your fate. Your fate is already written.
Fate.
And
Fate
so
was the- yeah,
it
that's
is
the big
like
through
it's
line.
like you escaped your fate by being the only survivor of that situation, but it's just like it's almost like he cheated death, and then death had to catch up with him a different way by the end of it. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, he cashed the check, and it's just like he knows he's just waiting. That he's got that fucking 1,000-yard stare in his eyes, and he's just waiting for the other shoe to drop because it's like it is his fate. He's like he knows he shouldn't have made it, and so it just makes sense that it's just like, oh, and then the gangsters are there because that's your fucking past coming back to get you, man, because it never ends. That's why it's so important that it shows their past, because it's very much like, I don't know, catches up with them in a way. I don't know. It's it's a very good movie.
Yeah.
I really like Friedkin a lot. Like the more that's what I'm saying. Like the more I watch of his movies, like they're all sort of flawed, but he's so kind of everywhere, all over the place, and it has like brings such an energy to it. Even as an old man, like one of his last movies, Killer Joe, and that movie has the fucking energy and craziness of like a young dude.
Well, and it's like, it's not in a genre. That's what's great. Even when he makes like this is kind of like a genre picture, but like he kind of tweaks it a little bit, and he kind of blends the genres really well, and so.
Yeah, because this is like an adventure thriller. Like I don't even know. Like
right, it's kind of like a crime drama.
Kind of.
You know, that's kind of what I would think is a crime drama, but then it becomes like a ticking time bomb style. Movie. That's that action adventure.
Well, all right, we're running a little long in tooth. I got the one. He's got his own segment. I got one Reddit. Clones are people too. This is your segment, buddy. So he says, first watch, the French version from the 50s has been on my watch list for years. And because of the name difference, Sorcerer versus The Wages of Fear, I overlooked this one. Right, because Wages of Fear is too dope.
Well, right. Yeah.
He says, this was great. I love the opening scenes that establish the characters. These are not good guys we are following. The film really sets the danger well. This jungle is unforgiving and life is cheap. The film got so good once they started driving. The tension in the big scenes was immense, and I was hooked on the bridge scene. The exploding truck was fantastic, too. To go through all that and have it happen at a quiet moment was perfect. I really liked the ending, maybe endings. The part where he was alone in the rocky plain going, where the fuck am I? Would have been a brilliant end point, but having his past catch up with him was just as good. Overall, 9 out of 10. I look forward to watching the French version eventually. Totally. Yeah. Thanks for commenting.
I do. Yeah. I watched like the trailer for the French version, and it looks more whimsical, if you will, like not as high stakes, but it also like
it's like adventure. It's like swashbuckling, right? Because I feel like obviously they're in the jungle in trucks, but it's like has that vibe of like we're dudes on an adventure, and they're like kind of like arguing with each other, but it's lighthearted. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's more of like a job that needs to be done instead of like desperation. Like this movie, it's like they're gripping to those pesos. Like they like anything, like any amount of money they can get.
And that's why it's important. Yeah. It's like even though it's a little drawn out, but like when they're in the village, they're all like the dude's trying to sell his watch so he can get a ride on this plane that finally came to this village. Like it's so interesting that they all ended up in this village and having the stuff at the beginning, like if they would have skipped all that, or if they would have just had Roy Schreider's character, and we're all probably butchering his name. I feel like I'm saying it wrong every time, but if it would have just been him, it wouldn't have felt like it did feel like almost coincidental. Like, oh, all these guys are all in this fucking anonymous village to get to this point, and I wouldn't have felt that way if it just jumped to it, because it's like, oh, these are all characters, they're here. But seeing their backstory first and how they all got there really made it feel like the fate. Like this was bound, like they were bound to come here to be told this, like to have this journey and have this story for him. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Go watch Sorcerer.
I didn't do a money minute, but it's the long short of it is this went from a $1 million budget to $22 million, and it only grossed $9 million.
Bummer.
So it really it was a hit, but Star Wars came out the same week, in the same week. So they got a little bit fucked.
Yeah.
Like, it was like it's funny. People were like lining around the block for this movie. They anticipated it. They wanted to see it when the first week it opened. It did like really good, and then it literally dropped. There was like nobody seeing the movie the second week because Star Wars opened, and it would like burn like wildfire through LA. So
that's funny. I guarantee you, Friedkin's like, fuck Star Wars.
I know, right? Though, and like this, honestly, this is a million times better than Star Wars. So
yeah, you know our stance. Go listen to that episode.
Yeah, I know. We talked about Star Wars. I liked some of it. Sure, I'm not gonna. But, you know, what I'm gonna say? You don't have tension though, dude, in Star Wars like this, man. Don't even get me started.
Now, see, if Friedkin would have directed Star Wars, then...
Oh, I know. Well, dude, and it's crazy. This originally, I'm sad because Roy Spider, he freaking he was like the 5th choice to be the lead in this.
Really? He was great.
The first, they went through the reason this got like I think it was like $5 to $9 million budget bump is because Steve McQueen was billed to do it. And so Steve McQueen was going to bring some of his co-stars and he was going to be the lead. And I actually kind of like that because we just watched Bullet.
Yeah.
I could totally see Steve McQueen doing this. But I think Steve McQueen would have tried to play it too sexy. Yeah. I think Roy Scheider did a great job at being schlubby.
Yeah, schlubby, like haunted,
desperate.
Yeah, 100%. Like he definitely
just that flop sweat was like, you know,
you really do feel like he's trying to hold it together, and he keeps having these like emotional bursts of like when he comes to the roadblock until he can find a way around it. But it's like almost like this crazy person.
Well, dude,
because then he kills that guy with that shovel. And then after that, he's just broken, dude. He's just a broken dude, and he's just like
the thing that's my favorite scene. Let's do that real quick. That segment we haven't done that whole chestnut in a minute. My favorite scene is once he gets past the bridge. He's this totally encapsulates his character perfectly. He's so excited that he's going. We just doubled our money. So originally they were only getting 10 grand. Now that we're gonna get 20 grand each.
He's like, there's no way
that truck is gonna make it. They're gonna die, and he's so elated. He's like, yes, we're gonna get paid more, and we beat that. And so when he gets to the tree, you're just like, oh, you fucking you hubris, dude. Dumb EQ. Look at you now, you small child. Like,
that's so good. Well, it's like when they get to the bridge, it's like they don't ever say it, but it's just like the fact that they go down such a steep, muddy hill to get there. Yeah. That it's just like they never say there's no going back. Like we have to cross this bridge.
Right.
It's just like a perfect thing of showing it, like showing the stakes and like it's like, oh yeah, because we know they didn't have a drawn out conversation about how we go back because you can't. And the fact they just showed like they went down this fucking mountainside to get there. Yeah, it's so great. So
God, and those trucks, we didn't even talk about how those trucks are just beautiful, dude. Those old like early 60s or late 60s, early 70s trucks.
They look like a beast, dude, because the one, the grill looked like teeth. And then,
did, dude.
And then there was two rusted out holes in the hood that looked like a snout. Yeah, it looked like some warthog in the jungle, dude.
Dude, I was totally cool. And it's because they put animal noises underneath it, so it is just like, and it's like I don't know. There was something about like I'm like watching these men drive the truck. It's beautiful. I love that.
Like, this is great. I'm really glad we picked this month because it was like, I feel like we've watched a lot of like sort of underrated gems.
And we've definitely watched like the most, because car month is weird. Like we've watched some movies that I'm like, this is definitively a car film though. I definitely give this a car film.
Oh yeah.
Because
all the tensions in the truck. The trucks are an animal of their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's great. I think Bullet is like the worst one that we've watched.
We liked Bullet, but it's like that's not a driving movie.
It's just not a driving movie. It's got a good chase scene, but I wouldn't call it a driving movie.
Let's see, because I hope this next movie, I don't remember it all that well, but I hope there's a lot of driving because I only remember a couple scenes of driving.
There's not that much driving.
There's not that much, but the movie is called Drive.
Yeah, which is going to be dope.
So. We're watching, so next week, go watch Sorcerer. It's great. It's it's deserving of your time. But next week we're watching Drive, which I'm excited to rewatch because I've only seen it once, and I thought it was really overrated when I saw it, but I saw it right when it came out, off all the hype. Everyone was hyping it up. It was like very popular at the time. And then since then, I've watched quite a few more of Nicholas Winding Refn's movies.
I know, yeah.
So I got kind of more of a vibe for him, and I kind of know what to expect a little bit more. So I do anticipate I will like it more this time around. So I'm interested.
I'm nervous because I loved this movie. When I first saw it, I was
I
like,
think you hyped it up to me, and that's why when I
Right.
finally watched
I know.
it. And also, we'll get into it, but the first scene is like the best.
Yes.
And that's the most driving too, is like that first scene.
I know, right.
And
It's
so
great.
I'm excited.
I love just like
Yeah.
I love a getaway driver. They're
so good.
They're so great.
So good.
Yeah. And then I love how he's broken Bryan Cranston. Okay, we'll
get
talk
into
about
it.
that.
Go watch it. I'm looking forward
come
to checking
here
it out.
next week, everybody. Yeah, come to Cold Cinema Knowledge next week.
Yeah. Come back next week. We're going to do a thing next week. Drive. Go watch Drive. Come talk to us about before we do the podcast. And we'll shout you out like our old pal, Clones Your People too. So.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody who contributes on Patreon.
Yep.
You're beautiful and
Everyone on
sexy, and
everyone
you're
on
going to get everything you
YouTube.
want in life.
I know. Yeah. Maybe hit me up for your stickers.
Yeah, baby.
I still got some of them. I don't see people. But yeah, everyone on the YouTubes, thanks for watching. Jordan's not frozen this week, even though I was worried there for a minute. You were having some issues earlier, but all right. So long, farewell.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.